Welcome, class, to week 8. So, we're going to wrap this up, and I'm hoping everyone has a great week. So, before we move on to the assignments for week 8, I don't want to skip what we learned in week 7. And week 7 is about not letting up on change. And how you do that is keeping that sense of urgency. Make sure that you keep that business case in front of employees, your teammates, and leadership as you proceed, because that's how you started to begin with. Make your plan fluid. Don't be so rigid that you can't make changes to your plan if the situation calls for it. And in terms of being done for your change project, it's about meeting all your objectives that you established from the beginning. If you fall short on any of those objectives, then people will wonder why they went through the change to begin with. Eliminate waste and show benefit. Continue to put in front of your team and your leadership that along the way you are eliminating waste, you are showing the benefit of the change, and that all ties into your sense of urgency as well. Communicate constantly. Make sure that you always are advising the team, advising your leadership on your status and what's moving and what's not moving. Make sure that you're communicating if you run into a barrier, especially with your leadership, because they should be there to help you push those barriers outward and get rid of those obstacles to your change. So make sure that you are working with your leaders to ensure that they are there right along with you. So we've gone through sense of urgency. We've talked about establishing a team, a vision. We talked about how to obtain buy-in through communications. We've talked about how to empower action with the team and yourself. We've talked about short-term wins and celebrating those wins. And then next, don't let up. And we've also talked about ethics. We have to make sure that whatever we are doing with our change project, that we always are keeping ethics at the forefront of our process. And then lastly is make it stick. And make it stick is all about ensuring that you have a solid infrastructure to support the change as it goes into implementation and continues on. And there's lots of ways that you can do that. You can use things like standard work. You can use continued training, but there are lots of options that you can use. And the goal here for Make It Stick is all about ensuring continued change activity is completed and then continues beyond that point. So what do we have going on this week? We have, in terms of assignments, for engagement, we're going to do peer review of change plans, and I'll talk about those in a minute. Those are due Wednesday at the end of the day, and the reason I've got those due on Wednesday is because you want to provide your teammates enough feedback that they can use that feedback for their final change plan paper. So that's why I'm anchoring it there for Wednesday. So you're going to want to get on to that right away, and I'll talk about that in a minute. In terms of our engagement discussion, we're going to be just taking a look at the course and going back and examining what does it mean in terms of once you've gone through this project and once you've gone through a change, what are some of the things that you learned as part of the process? And so I'd like you to do a little bit of reflecting on what did you gain and what can you take moving forward and use as part of your career toolkit. And then the change plan paper is due on Saturday at 11:59 p.m. And that will be the last obligation you have for coursework in the class. However, I want to point out that I also would like, if you can, to complete the idea survey upon completion of the course. And the reason that I really highlight this area particularly is this is the first time, one, that I've taught this course, but secondly, this course is going to be going through some modifications for fall, and I want to use that feedback to redesign the course slightly. In actuality, the course will be designed somewhat like I taught it this term, primarily because I introduced some new concepts and removed some material that was in the course previously. So I actually made quite a few changes this particular term, but I want to make some more, and your feedback would be extremely beneficial. So as we look at those 3 items and your idea survey, let's go into the peer review. I've teamed you up with a member of the class, and you can see the team alignment here. It is also showing in the discussion board area of your module. So the 2 of you will team up to review each other's change plans. And so you'll find your teammates' change plan, you'll read and review, you'll provide feedback, and I would like you at the start of your discussion board entry, make sure you put your name from and then to your teammate's name so we can easily maneuver through the discussion board. And the questions that I'm going to ask you to answer is each section complete in the change plan? If not, what sections do you feel are missing or not sufficient or complete? Does the plan utilize any reference to our reading materials? For your paper, I would expect that you're going to be pulling from our reading materials to support and use as evidence. And then after reading each section, are there any areas that require more explanation or evidence? And then what suggestions do you have? And make sure that you don't answer that with none. Make sure you provide your teammate with some good feedback that they can use for their paper going forward. So the change plan paper that is due on Saturday night should be written in APA style. This is a regular essay. The change plan journal is your outline. And so you're going to want to take each of those categories that you used in your change journal, and you're going to want to embellish and use your reading material. You can use real world examples. But make sure that you have sufficient evidence for your ideas, and that's going to be key. But in terms of APA style guidelines, you're going to need citations, you'll have a reference page, you'll have headers, you'll have a title page, and you will follow APA guidelines throughout your paper. And that will include first an introduction with a thesis statement. That thesis statement should say at the end of your introduction, what will you be discussing in your change plan? You'll discuss sense of urgency. You'll discuss building the guiding team. You'll talk about getting the vision right. What is your vision? You'll move into communicating for buy-in. What are you going to use in terms of communication? And I also would like you in this section, if you would like to, you can attach your slides that you did for me previously. So your change presentations can actually go as an attachment to your paper here. Empower action is all about those obstacles. Creating short-term wins, how are you going to do that? Don't let up and make it stick. How will you make that change a reality and reinforce the implementation and completion? And then lastly, the conclusion and reflection piece is actually what you're going to be writing in the discussion board this week. So that is the week. It's a lot to go through, but you all have done such a great job with following your change plans and maturing those as we've gone from week to week. So I am very excited to see your final product after going through the 8 weeks, and I have thoroughly enjoyed having all of you in class. So if you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you would like to send me rough drafts of your change plan, I will also take a look at those and provide feedback prior to Saturday so you can implement those changes that I suggest. But let's have a great last week and let's get started.